In my book, Legacy of the Arcane Flame, I use a sacred object that was created over 3 million years ago by the god. Rewatching Jessica Jones and, Marvel, and it made me think, are sacred objects being used too much in literature? I don't know. Let's talk about that. My name is AJ McMullen. Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am, that's fine, because I'm at the beginning of my career and I only have 2 books published right now. My first book, Legacy of the Arcane Flame, was the 5th book that I ever published officially, and the first book of my current series, the Arcane and Calamity series. The Arcane and Calamity series revolves around 10 relics created by the gods. Can't say which god because, of course, that would give away a lot about my story that I don't necessarily want to give away until pretty much later on in the series. The entire series is revolving around humanity's discovery of these 10 artifacts that were created by the gods to balance the universe. A lot of things that's based in science and retellings of things. My book is based off of mythology, not necessarily Greek mythology. But for uneducated people out there, I just want everybody to know that there are more mythologies than just Greek mythology, but I dive into a little bit of every mythology, Norse mythology, African mythology, Latin lore, Indian, everything, like indigenous. I dive into a little bit of everything. If there is a old folk tale about something in the past, I have taken it and I have added it into the Aether universe. So something to look forward to for some of you history nerds. I am not a history nerd, but by any stretch of the imagination, but I do love the idea that there are things that we don't understand about the universe that we live in. So here we go. We're talking about Legacy of the Arcane Flame. It is about the Pyrostone, which is the fire element, the heat of the entire universe. When this heat of the universe is threatened, I can't even say that because you guys won't need to read Legacy of the Arcane Flame. Just about every universal literature that's out there has some kind of mythical object or sacred artifact or something of that nature. And let me give you a few examples here. We got DC has the lantern rings. They're not necessarily relics per se, because the lantern rings are created, but DC does have this kind of thing where the lantern rings are, they give you certain powers depending on which color you have. And if you have all of them, then you have a super weapon. And I think there's once in the comic books, Batman wore the lantern rings of all 10 lantern cores and it turned him into a super weapon. Marvel, of course, you have the Infinity Stones. Marvel has them too, things that have been around for millions of years now. Transformers has the Allspark. I'm looking at this list and I forgot about Transformers. Transformers have the Allspark. If you want to put it that way, some of the Transformers themselves are sacred objects that show up in that universe. That's a whole different scenario. You have the Horcruxes and pretty much everything that's ever been touched by somebody in their history. Lord of the Rings, the ring, obviously. The Cauldron and the Dread Trove from the ACOTAR series. But it brought me to just thinking about those things. Are these relics or these sacred objects, are they being overused in literature? I have come across a few things where somebody said that this book is about a sacred object or something that was made millions and millions of years ago. I'm not reading it. But, I can kind of understand that because there have been some situations where some creators or writers have used an object or something that just did not seem to do what it was supposed to do. In my opinion, why put something in a book where you're not even going to really truly understand it by the end of it. That's kind of like somebody putting a object in their book. There's this character who really wants this object. They finally get it and nothing changes. Like they don't accomplish anything. They just get the object and they put it on their bookshelf somewhere. And that's not necessarily something that people want to read, you know, especially when you put this much energy into writing about this object. And sometimes that kind of happens in literature. And I have seen some examples myself, none that I want to speak about on this video, but it happens, and I understand why people feel that way. I personally, I love it. I'm just going to be honest with you. A good story about a object that ain't supposed to be touched. You know, like the Cave of Wonders in Aladdin. I love seeing the chaos that ensnares when someone gets their hands on something that they're not supposed to get their hands on. Hence the Arcane and Calamity series. I love the complexity. If this certain person touched this object, it gives them powers. But if this person touch it, then it creates chaos. Here's the thing. If it has to be in the story, then it has to serve a purpose. I don't care what it is. The 12 stones in my Aether universe, they serve a purpose. They were created to balance the universe. The universe itself was created as an extension of these 12 objects, which is the reason why one is in peril or one is out of commission, or I'm trying to tread lightly here without actually spilling too much of the details. Humanity, when mankind gets their hands on one of it kind of off balance, because these things are meant to balance the universe. And they have been touched before. They have been handled by man before, which is the reason why the Arcanon, the ancient Arcanon, the civilization that lived with the gods, already knew what would happen if man finds these objects. So they kind of play the background, but they drive the story a little bit as well. I was reading the ACOTAR series, and by the time I got to A Court of Mist and Fury, I realized that the cauldron was a whole fucking character. Like, it had lines and stuff, and I'm just like, that's how you create a sacred object right there. You give that thing a face and a name and a voice. And I was listening to the dramatized version on the audiobook, so imagine how creepy that was. But say that there was a book, a spell book or something that actually spoke as well, and some other sacred objects in the ACOTAR series. That I'm just gonna be honest with y'all, I like the ACOTAR series. I hated the first book, but I was told that I should read through that and get to the next book, and then I would start liking the series. I didn't really feel in the Beauty and the Beast retelling. That has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about here. I do believe Marvel did a good job with the Infinity Stones, because they really that important. And then all of a sudden Thanos came, and his goal was to retrieve these were stones that you had seen in multiple various movies about different things up until this particular point. And is ultimately of how I wrote the Arcanic series, because that complexity in the movies. And I do believe that was handled pretty well. What can I say about DC? DC hasn't really done well with objects within their universe. I don't have a good thing to say about it, and I think it's mostly because I haven't really been that versed on the DC comics, like the actual comic books. I just remember the Lantern Rings being a huge thing for a short period of time in the comic books. Lord of the Rings made an entire series about the ring itself. So, really good talking about this ring and what people were able to do in his stories with that ring, that it gave, things of that nature. I really seen the ring. I seen the end of Lord of the Rings, I want to say. Never really watched it, never read the books, but I heard it was really good. There's a lot of good things to be said about that. There's hordes of humans who flock to a story like that. So is it overused in literature? I don't believe so. I do believe that there is a lot of people who use it correctly, and I do believe that there's a lot of people who uses it incorrectly. I have definitely read books where this have read books where this concept is pretty much null and void, where an author would put a sacred object in the book and make one of their main characters obsess over it, and it serves absolutely no purpose. There's no payoff at the end. There's no reward. There's no consequence. And it just kind of falls flat. If we touch this or we get this item, something good that could come from it, but we won't know until we actually get it. And then at that point, the author shows a scenario of, is something good going to happen when they get it? Or did we not really think this all the way through and then we get it and then find out that we shouldn't have gotten it all along? And those are the stories I like the best. But let me know your opinions in the comments, and I would love to know if I missed some. For one thing, I would love to continue this conversation and keep talking about sacred objects. I love sacred objects, man. Sacred objects themselves are not going to show up for past this series. Like, they're going to always be a part of the Aether universe. I just believe that telling the history of a universe is really important to start talking about the objects that were there to shape the universe itself, and which is the reason why I talk about it so much in my series. So if you want to see how I implemented the sacred object in Legacy of the Arcane and Flame, you can find that book anywhere, in ebook and paperback, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and books to read. That book will be available everywhere right now, as well as the companion story, The Darkest Day, and the prequel story, Before the Flame, Conspiracy Codex, which is a prequel story to both books. I know you probably haven't seen that before, but there is a universal timeline here that I'm going off of. So therefore, you have a bundle of 3 books that is the beginning of one series, but in the span of 2 completely different series. I love this. I just keep writing so much, man. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm probably writing so much because I'm not spending enough time marketing, but I want to give content to the world, stuff that people can find entertaining, but yet it makes them question reality. And I love that about what I do. I love this. I love doing this, which is the reason why I wanted to spend most of my efforts on this YouTube channel opposed to my motorcycle channel, which I did have fun doing, but you know, now I'm here. I'm going to stop rambling. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this conversation, and do me a favor and support the channel by liking and subscribing. God, you sat here and watched the video. Why not? Head over to my website and read my blog post about sacred objects and literature, and let's talk.